Look, y'all niggas ain't getting any younger, so y'all need to stop being petty and just give us a new fucking album while we still kind of sort of fucking care. What's going on, everybody? It's the Granddad of Granddad, Wooly, and you are here again for another edition of CD Case Studies. Today, we're going into the book and talking about one of the most iconic and legendary hip-hop crews out of New York. These motherfuckers in the early 2000s had a strong hold on the goddamn game. They was affiliated with Roc-a-fella, but they was pretty much their own goddamn entity and beast. They was doing big things in Harlem, and they still doing big things now on their own solo perspective tips. But back then, like, it wasn't nothing better than when it was all together and 100% strong. We are talking about none other than the one and only Dipset, the Diplomats. So we're gonna go into the book right here. We're gonna talk about some of my favorite albums from the Dipset. Now, there's only 2 official Diplomat albums. They have mixtapes and shit, but we only got official albums right here. And I also got a few solo joints from some members that I'll kind of skim over as well. But let me give you a little backstory about the Dipset if you ain't too familiar. They were a group comprised of CamRon, Juelz Santana, Jones Freekey Zeekey. Those were the 4 main core niggas. But then you also had Hell Rel, 40 Cal, J.R. Ryder, just to name a few. And they were a big staple out of Harlem. They were really affiliated with Dame Dash. They were part of Roc-a-fella Records. But at the same time, they were kind of doing their own damn thing. Like, some people at Roc-a-fella, Jay-Z, didn't fuck with the Dipset too much. It was just, but I mean, it is what it is. And now they've all pretty much went on and did their own things. They've had some falling outs, getting back together. You know that brotherly family shit where they hate niggas, but then they still love niggas because that's fam, but at the same time, fuck them niggas. That's kind of like where Dipset's at right now, especially Cam and Jimmy. They like fighting all the goddamn. They still fighting right now about some shit. I heard Jimmy was fighting and crying on radio or some shit, but then Cam didn't give a fuck because Cam was savage. I don't fucking know. It doesn't matter. Niggas need just to stop fucking being petty and just get the goddamn shit going. But now we're gonna talk about more of a better time in the Dipset and when they first started coming around. Now let me tell you about how I got into Dipset, y'all. So I first heard around Dipset is when first little taste of Dipset was when CamRon came out with the song Oh Boy, when he signed with Roc-a-fella and had Juelz on there. And I thought that song was cool. I really wasn't like all crazy about that song like some people were. People were like in love with that fucking song. I don't know why. It was cool. I mean, it was a dope little song, but I really didn't get too much into it. It wasn't until I was put on by good old Music Choice. You know, they be looking out for a nigga, and they played this one song called I'm Ready. And when I heard the song, first thing that got me was the beat. It had this sped up chipmunk sample, had this nice soul, just like fucking vibe to it, but these hard hitting drums and just like a face crunching joint. And I realized it said the Diplomats, and then I put 2 and 2 together because I also heard CamRon on there and Juelz Santana. I was like, this is the same niggas from the Old Boy joint, but this shit is hard as fuck. So I was like, yo, I like this shit. I'm vibing with this shit. But I didn't automatically just go out and buy the fucking album from that shit. It wasn't until I heard another song on Music Choice. It was called More Than Music, and it was the same fucking vibe. Crazy beat, same niggas. I was like, okay, fuck it. What the fuck is Diplomats doing that I'm fucking missing out on? And it turns out they had dropped their debut album on Roc-a-fella Records, and it was an album that was pretty much considered a New York classic. I mean, some people didn't like it as much. Some people loved it. It was one of them albums, but yo, I thought this shit was dope, and it was none other than the double disc debut. This motherfucker right here, Diplomatic Immunity. Now, this shit dropped in 2003, and like I said, this was the debut Diplomats album. This was after CamRon dropped his solo album. I think it was called Come Home With Me, and it went platinum, and then like after that, they got a deal with Roc-a-fella, and the first thing that they dropped was this motherfucker to showcase the rest of the Dipset. You had Juelz on here, you had Jones on here, Freekey Zeekey. They also had Uncasa on here, Hell Rel was on here. Who else was on this motherfucker? DMX was on here too. I mean, I'm going to features now. DMX was here, Master P was here, Freeway was on this joint. Not many other Roc-a-fella motherfuckers on here because Dipset was new and I think it was some shit going on. So like now niggas was like fucking with Dipset off top. But that was alright because it was already like 78 niggas in Dipset, so they really need any more niggas to rap for them. I mean, like Cam was doing this thing, Juelz was fucking beast on here. Jones was just getting into his rapping, but he had some bars here and there though, but he was still fresh into the rap game. And Freekey Zeekey just came in with the funniest fucking skits that I've probably heard on any album. This nigga was on point. This nigga needs to be a comedian. Like, this nigga was funny as shit on this album. And that was pretty much like the core of the shit, and they came through with some crazy fucking tracks. Heatmakers were pretty much the main producers on here. It was my first introduction to the Heatmakers, and I think this is pretty much their first introduction to the world. And god damn it, they had some of the hardest, craziest soul chopped up chipmunk voice sample beats that you can fucking hear. I mean, like I said, I'm ready. More Than Music. They also had Dipset Anthem, which was fucking crazy. My Love, Who Am I, About It Part 2, or was it 3? I don't fucking know. It was About It, Master P was on the shit, so fuck it, that's what it was. But it was a dope fucking album. I really like this album. Like I said, this pretty much considered a classic, and this is what really got me into Dipset. I was like, yo, okay, I fuck with these niggas, especially Juelz Santana. This motherfucker showed and proved on this album. I think this album was pretty much to showcase Santana, because he was all over this shit. I think he was on here more than anybody else. Cam was really trying to push hard to get Juelz out there, and it was really apparent on this album, and it was dope because he really shined. Like, a lot of the singles and a lot of the songs on here that were the best, Santana was on. So if you have not heard Diplomatic Immunity, you have definitely got to check this out. Both discs are fucking crazy. They both got some gems. Like I said, you got Heatmaker's production, Kanye production on here, Just Blaze, just to name some few notable names, and it's just a really crazy album. And it's one of them albums that, like, if you from New York, you have heard this album. As a matter of fact, if you from like the north side, as a matter of fact, fuck it, everybody has heard Dipset, everybody has heard this shit or something from this, cause it's fucking dope. Next time I'm gonna talk about, y'all, is the official follow-up to Diplomatic Immunity, and this shit dropped 1 year later. I'm trying to get the disc in the goddamn case. Oh, sorry. But we got it right here, and this one right here is when, after they had left Roc-a-fella, like they had a falling out and whatnot, they wasn't there for that long. They signed a deal with Koch Records. This is when Dipset pretty much went fully independent and started doing things on their own officially, and they came with this motherfucker right here. It's a burned copy, y'all. I had the real shit, but it got fucked up. A lot of my CDs got fucked up, but you know, I always be backing it up, and it is, of course, Diplomatic Immunity 2. Now, this shit dropped in 2004, 1 year after Diplomatic Immunity, and this one right here, I don't think had as big of an impact as the first Diplomatic Immunity, mainly because it wasn't like put out like Roc-a-fella put it out on a major scale. It was more independent, and also Dipset had put in a lot of new members, or they had showcased a lot more members on this album than the last album, but this album was shorter, only one disc, so it seemed a little bit more saturated, and also I don't think there were more impactful songs. They didn't have as much of the Heatmaker's production on here. They really branched out to other producers and whatnot, and then it just was songs on here that were really dope. Like Santana was a dope song. I really like that song. And then also they had Crunk Music on here, which was a hit, and some other joints on here, but it really wasn't just that impactful. But I still think it's a solid album, and it has some really good showings from Santana and Cam and Jim. J.R. Ryder was really coming into his own, and he was really dope. SAS was on here, so Hell Rell was on here too. So there was a lot of really dope artists on this project, but I just don't think, like I said, it had the same impact and oomph as the first Diplomatic Immunity, and I think it's because it was stripped away of a lot of the resources that the first album had, and a lot of the just, I guess, gloss and luster that that first album had, as opposed to this one. But it's still a dope album. Definitely check it out. If you heard the first one, you gotta hear the second one, and apparently a third Diplomatic Immunity 3 was supposed to be coming out sometime, but fuck, I don't know when that shit's fucking happening. But so far, this is as far as we've gotten, so like hopefully we get a 3 and we can get that Heatmaker's production, like straight up, all Heatmaker's production. If and anything, add some Just Blaze up in there. You know, take it back to the core. Take it back to the roots. That shit's gonna be fucking crazy. That's what we need to fucking hear. But check out Diplomatic Immunity 2. Not as good as the first one, but still pretty solid. But I mean, hey, it is what it is. They had got the whole Roc-a-fella situation got all muddied up, and I mean, shit happened, but they had to get their shit going, and they really wanted to showcase who else was in the Dipset, and that's what this album right here was for. All right, so the next albums I'm gonna talk about, y'all, I'm gonna just skim over to show you pretty much who else solo tip as far as I got. So let's see. So when it comes to Santana, I got a burned copy of his debut, From Me to You. This shit dropped in 2003. It had that one song, what was it? Santana's Town, I think. It was like Dipset. That was my shit, though. The beats on here were crazy. Heatmakers did most of the production on here, too. They had fucking the opera shit, what was it called? Monster Music, that was my shit. A whole bunch of other shit on here. What else? I can't remember off the top of my head, but yo, this shit's fucking crazy. I think Juelz Santana had a fucking seriously slept on debut album, because this shit was fucking heat, top to bottom. I love this joint right here, From Me to You. If you have not heard his debut album, check that out. This is when they were still with Roc-a-fella and Def Jam, so definitely, you know, cop this one right here because it is a hot one. His follow-up, which was dropped in 2005, I believe, and this is after he had, I guess, sold, I think Cam, like, sold Juelz's contract to Def Jam, so Juelz was straight Def Jam, but it still says Diplomats on here, but he dropped his follow-up, What the Game's Been Missing, and this was the last Juelz Santana album that we got, and this one was fucking crazy too. Santana has some crazy albums. I love this album. He had the Whistle song, I think. He had the Mic Check 1 2 song. That was a dope fucking song and video. He had Rakim up in there. It was just like crazy fucking album. I haven't heard this shit in a long fucking time, yo. Like honestly, this shit's what, fucking 12 years old? Shit. And like I think Santana put out a really, really great album. Another album that got slept on, but this one actually went certified gold because they did have a couple hits on there. But for the most part, like Santana never really like hit his peak or his stride after Dipset kind of fell apart. But for the most part, I think this right here is another album you should check out. I still like his debut better than this one, but this one is fucking hot as hell too. And when it comes to CamRon, y'all, I think I only got one CamRon album, man, because like I really wasn't like big on CamRon albums for some reason. Like I thought CamRon was dope, but for some I just didn't buy or get into many of his albums. Like I thought they were just really cool, but there was never really a CamRon album that blew me away. But I did get this album because one of my best friends was a huge CamRon fan, and he had this one, and it has some joints on there, so I burned it off of him. And I'm talking about Purple Haze. This is the one that he dropped. This is the second Roc-a-fella release, but this is when he was already pretty much done with Roc-a-fella, but they had to contractually release this shit under Roc-a-fella, so they put it out. And I like this one right here. It had that one song with Kanye. What was that song with Kanye West? They're trying to say we down. I think it's like Down and Out. Yeah, Down and Out. That shit was fucking crazy. That was my shit. And then I remember in the video at the end, they played that one song, I think it was called Get 'Em Daddy. It wasn't on this fucking album. It ended up being on his next album. I think it was called Killer Season. But yo, that shit was fucking crazy. And that's the only reason why I got this shit, because I thought that shit was on here and it wasn't. I was kind of pissed off. But it is some other dope joints on here. Good album, probably one of my favorite CamRon albums. But I do think I like Killer Season a little bit better, even though I don't own it, but I like Killer Season just a little bit better than this one. But this one is pretty much dope too. A lot of crazy shit on here, so definitely check out Purple Haze. Check out all CamRon stuff. He has some really solid stuff back earlier in the 2000s, mid 2000s, early 2000s. That was his like core golden period where he was dropping some straight fucking fire. So definitely check this one out. It's hot. And with Jim Jones, y'all, same thing. I think I only got one Jim Jones album, and it's actually his debut album. And this one here is also a burned copy off of a bootleg copy that somebody I knew had, because I was like, yo, I mean, I didn't know what to expect from Jim Jones, because like I said, he was just getting into rapping, and like he was like one of the newest niggas as far as skill-wise on Dipset, so I really wasn't too much into him. But I did hear this one song that he dropped called Certified Gangsters, and in the video it actually featured The Game, but on the album I think they took it off because 50 Cent didn't want The Game to be on Jim Jones' album, because this was the same time The Game was really like coming up into his own, and he didn't want The Game on anybody else's shit until The Game dropped his debut. So it wasn't on the actual album, but it was enough for me to actually really get into actually listening to this album. And this album right here is what it is. On My Way to Church. Now this shit dropped in 2004. I don't know if it dropped before or after the second Diplomatic Community album. I'm not sure. I can't think off the top of my head, but it was in the same year. And this is actually a very surprisingly good album to me, especially on the production side. I mean, the heat makers are on here. My favorite song, This Is Jim Jones. That fucking beat is so goddamn crazy, yo. But it's also Blackout Music, I think did some shit on here. Bula did some shit on here. But like, it's fucking dope on the production side. It's got some cool intros from Benjamin Muhammad. He did some intro and outro vocals on here, which is dope. And it's really, really just a nice album. Very impressed from Jim Jones. Like lyrically, Jim Jones was coming into his own. He still was like getting there, but he was a lot better and more improved from the first Dipset album, which is really good. We also had Cam on here. Juelz was on here. Who else was on here? Bezel was on here. J.R. Ryder. Busy Bone was on here for the song Twin Towers, which was dope. I mean, there's a lot of crazy joints on here. Like I said, I haven't heard these fucking albums in so goddamn long. I might have to go back and listen to them to refresh myself. But I do remember this shit being fucking dope, and I was playing this shit quite often. And it was actually one of my favorite albums at the time because I was just so impressed with how good it was on the production side and how much pretty much Jim Jones had grown as an artist. So we have not heard On My Way to Church, the debut Jim Jones album. Definitely check it out. It is some gems on there. Really got slept on too, but it is some shit on here that I think that some people will enjoy, especially if they're Dipset fans. And I think that's all I got for Dipset, y'all, as far as CDs. But like, I went on and kept listening to music and, you know, things that came out. But like I said, as the years went on, Dipset just sort of just like kind of evaporated and just sort of just fanned out and didn't do much. And I think they were close to signing a deal with Interscope for a new album, but I think the shit just didn't go through. And then like nothing happened after that. More drama happened, and then I think CamRon put out like an EP with DJ A-Track, and then there was a song I think called Dipshits with Santana that was fucking dope as fuck. But nothing came from that. And then I think like there was another song where Cam and Jim and Juelz are on there, but Cam took off Jim's verse, or some crazy shit was happening. Whole bunch of petty bullshit that was going on, and that makes pretty much saying, no, we not getting another fucking Dipset album or anytime soon, but we need that shit. So y'all need to get this shit together, cut all that shit out, and make an album for us. We need a Diplomatic Community 3 with the heat makers and Just Blaze and all that shit, and just put it on the pot and just fucking serve it to us so we can eat the shit and be fucking happy with our lives. But that's all I gotta say, y'all, from my Dipset collection. Not too much, but yo, I was a big fan of these dudes back then, and like it would be good to see them come together full-fledged one more time for an album. Will we get one? I don't fucking know. I mean, probably not, but yo, we can wish and we can hope. That's all we can fucking do. Previous videos on the side, some fucking where you know I do, as well as my newest single. Well, it really ain't new, y'all. It's like I dropped it in 2014 on the low tip, but like now I'm like, yo, might as well just drop it full-fledged officially, because there's some motherfuckers who ain't heard this shit. So check that out if you haven't, as well as my social media, Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, Instagram, links in the description below, and subscribe. Button on the screen, button below, CDK studies once a week, as well as the gaming channel. Check that shit out, and Wooly reviews. You know what it is, and I mean, I got nothing really much else to say except for we need a new Dipset album, but goddamn it, you know that shit probably most likely ain't gonna fucking happen. So until next time I take my leave, Granddad, the Diplomats, the CDK studies, these motherfuckers were dope as shit back in the day. I mean, they still are. They just need to get back together and do one more time. I mean, that's why I ain't in a group. I can't do group shit because shit like this happens and nobody gets nothing done. Paper's all fucked up. I'm out of here.